Lamar Jackson and the Ravens stormed into Los Angeles on Monday night and destroyed Jared Goff and the Rams. I'll talk about why Lamar Jackson is the NFL MVP, as well as some concerns I have for him going forward. And I will be debuting a new segment today called Things That Don't Make Sense, where, you guessed it, I talk about things that do not make sense. So sit back, relax, and take a seat. Courtside. Hello there, and welcome to episode 40 of Courtside. I'm your host, Andrew Cohen. Today's Tuesday, November 26th, 2019. Thanksgiving is just around the corner, but last night, Monday Night Football, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens went off in Los Angeles against the Rams, and Lamar Jackson with a great game, 15 of 20 passing, 169 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, added 8 carries for 95 yards. He was doing it all. A 45-6 win for the Ravens. They're up 28-6 at halftime. I could go on about how well they played last night. And listen, if the NFL season ended today, Lamar Jackson's your MVP. Now, yeah, there's still a month left, and Russell Wilson still has a shot, but as of now, it's far and away Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. Okay, first of all, you look at, the idea here is, well, Russell Wilson, he's the better passer. Lamar Jackson's by far the better runner. I was looking at the passing stats today. They're pretty darn close. Completion percentage, 66.9% for Lamar Jackson, 67.3% for Russell Wilson. That's just 0.4% difference between the two. I mean, it's very close. You look at the passing yards. This is the one place where Russell Wilson separates himself. He has 2,900 passing yards compared to Lamar Jackson's 2,400. So about 500 more passing yards for Russell Wilson, maybe like 2 games worth. So yeah, okay, I get that. But it's really just about volume, because you look at the pass yards per attempt, 8.1 for Lamar Jackson, 8.3 for Russell Wilson. They're right there. It's just Russell Wilson passes the ball more often than Lamar Jackson. Touchdowns, both have 24 passing touchdowns, and then Lamar Jackson 5 picks, Russell Wilson just 3. However, Lamar Jackson's interceptions came I think back in, I want to say, week 4 and 5 when they played the Steelers and the Browns. He had 3 against I believe the Browns or I can't remember which one he had 3 against, which one he had 2 against, but it was all within the course of those 2 games. Besides that, he's played really well this year. The obvious difference between the two guys, of course, is the rushing stats, which Lamar Jackson obviously has Russell Wilson beat, but the rushing numbers that Lamar Jackson is putting up are just, they're historic numbers. Okay, he currently has 876 rushing yards. He's on pace for 1,274, which would break the all-time record by an NFL quarterback for rushing yards in a single season. Currently held by Michael Vick, who had, I believe it was 1,039 rushing yards back in his day. So Lamar Jackson's going to beat that by about 250 yards, which is obviously extremely impressive. He's also averaging 7.1 yards per carry. That's the most yards per carry among all qualified players in the entire league. Over his career, he's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. That's good for third all-time, by the way, which is extremely impressive. Obviously, he hasn't technically, qualified for that all-time list or whatnot, but that's, again, he's just an extremely efficient runner as well as an extremely efficient passer. And then he has 6 rushing touchdowns. He's on pace for almost 9. Which is obviously just very impressive, which I have said so many times. We're talking about Lamar Jackson. Listen, he's winning games, and yeah, Russell Wilson is too. Both their teams are 9-2, but to me, when it comes to winning the MVP, the automatic disqualifier is if your team sucks. That's the automatic disqualifier, and Lamar Jackson, obviously, his team is playing really, really well. Now, I do have some questions, not necessarily concerns, but some questions about Lamar Jackson. I have 3 legitimate questions about Lamar Jackson. Number 1, can his style of play lead his team to a Super Bowl victory? Because the fact of the matter is this: history says running quarterbacks do not win Super Bowls. Okay, you can look at Michael Vick, you can look at Randall Cunningham, you can look more recently at guys like Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick. They might get there, right? Kaepernick got to a Super Bowl, so did Cam Newton, but they didn't win. The only exception to this might be Steve Young, right? He's one of the better rushing quarterbacks of all time. Of course, he won 3 Super Bowls, but one as the starter for the 49ers. But he's also one of the best passers of all time. So right? I mean, even there, it's not a true, pure running quarterback. And that's obviously a legitimate question to be asking when you're talking about the Ravens Super Bowl chances this year. Second question I have, is it sustainable? I mean, number one, yeah, he's a running quarterback. He's just going to be more susceptible to injuries than any other quarterback in the league because he runs more than any quarterback in the league. And also, I mean, the offense kind of revolves around him. And what I mean by that is that there have to be a lot of pieces in place for the offense to work with Lamar Jackson. Okay? I mean, it's a hard offense to run, and Greg Roman has done a great job this year. The Ravens offensive coordinator, he's done an amazing job this year. He's done such a great job that he's probably going to be a head coach next year for some other team. So they're going to need to get a new offensive coordinator, and we'll have to see if that will work out for Lamar Jackson, because last year it was good, but this year Greg Roman has really taken Lamar Jackson and that offense to the next level. In addition, the personnel has to be great. You got to have an amazing offensive line, great tight ends, a great group of running backs. And then you got to have a good defense too, because it's hard to run a rush-heavy offense if you're going down 2 scores early in the game because your defense can't stop anyone. Right? So there's a lot of questions here about the sustainability of this offense, the style of offense that the Ravens are running around Lamar Jackson. That's a question I have. Third question I have is what happens when Lamar Jackson has to pass more than 20 to 25 times in the game? Okay, he's only passed 30 or more times in the game 4 times this year, and they're 2-2 in those games. The Ravens are 2-2. 500 team when he throws at least 30 passes. He also hasn't thrown for 300 yards since week 1 in Miami, and that's Miami, whose defense is terrible. I just wonder this. If the Ravens get into January and they have to go late game drive, Lamar Jackson's throwing 30 to 40 times in the game, I don't know if the Ravens win that one. I don't know. I mean, maybe they do, but Lamar Jackson still has to prove that he's capable of that. And that's not to say he's proven that he's not capable of that. It's just we haven't seen it. That's something that he has not had to do so far this season. That's maybe the one thing you can say, Russell Wilson maybe has an advantage there, just the clutch factor that he holds. But overall, in terms of this year, Lamar Jackson, probably the best show in football right now. The Ravens are currently the team to beat in the AFC. I believe that. I mean, they steamrolled the Texans. They dominated the Patriots. And back in, I think it was week 3 when they played the Chiefs, that was a really close game. The Ravens are a much better team than we thought they were then, and the Chiefs are probably not as good of a team as we thought they were then. And overall, I mean, this roster that the Ravens have around Lamar Jackson is almost perfect as could possibly be constructed. So until further notice, Ravens are the team to beat in the AFC, and Lamar Jackson is your NFL MVP. Alrighty, it is time to debut the new segment here on the Courtside podcast. Things that don't make sense, where, pretty straightforward, I talk about things that don't make sense. This will be a segment I do every single time, ideally, that I record an episode on a Tuesday. So every time there's a Tuesday episode, which hopefully will be a lot here in the future, you can expect to hear this segment. In the segment, I'll be talking about mainly sports things, but always at the end, I'll add 1 to 2 things about regular everyday life that just does not make sense to me. All right, first thing this week that does not make sense to me. How was Aaron Rodgers in the MVP conversation as recently as a few weeks ago? I mean, already when somebody said Aaron Rodgers had a chance to win MVP, or he was their MVP favorite, I was already questioning them very, very heavily. I began to judge them very heavily. I'm not going to lie to you. Because, okay, he's the passing quarterback, right? So you got to compare him to Russell Wilson. The passing numbers, not as impressive as Russell Wilson's. The rushing numbers obviously are not going to be anywhere close to what Lamar Jackson is putting up. So why was this guy in the MVP conversation? Because his name is Aaron Rodgers, and he's on the Green Bay Packers, who are actually winning games for once, which they haven't done in a few years now. Is that why? Because he's the quarterback of that team. And again, his name is Aaron Rodgers. Over the past 3 games, he's averaging 166 passing yards per game. That's terrible. That's terrible. I would bet there's 30 other quarterbacks in the league doing better than that. So, again, just does not make sense to me how we can put this guy in the same category as Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson this year. Even somebody like Christian McCaffrey. Now, I value winning so much for MVP that McCaffrey would have no shot. If I was choosing MVP, he'd have no shot. But what he's doing from the running back position is special. What Lamar Jackson's doing is special. What Russell Wilson's doing is very, very, very good. What Aaron Rodgers is doing this year is, it's above average. It's fine. But it's not MVP level. Second thing that's not making sense to me right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in the playoff race. The Pittsburgh Steelers that started off 1-4, they're 6-5 now, despite having no Big Ben. Juju Smith-Schuster's been banged up all season. He's been fighting through a lot of different injuries. James Conner's been in and out of the lineup. Obviously, there's no more Antonio Brown. Their quarterback position is terrible. Mason Rudolph, he's really stunk it up. And now they're going with Devlin Duck Hodges, who's fine. He won a game against the Chargers in his only start. Last week he came in relief of Mason Rudolph and pulled that game out for the Steelers, which was huge. But he's not a great starting quarterback. I'm not sure if I'd want my starting quarterback to be named Duck. That's just personal preference. Now, listen, the defense has really stepped up, and I'll give that side of the ball a lot of credit. The trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick has worked out tremendously. But still, if this team's making the playoffs in the AFC, what does that say about the AFC? Because the NFC is going to have 5 amazing teams, plus the Cowboys, make the playoffs. And then in the AFC, the Patriots are really good. The Ravens are really good. The Chiefs are, fine. The Texans are fine. Titans. But if the Steelers make the playoffs, no. I cannot see a world in which the Pittsburgh Steelers are making the playoffs this season. Okay, third thing that doesn't make sense. So I'll set the scene for you. It's a big Monday night game in Toronto. 76ers versus the Raptors. Sixers coming in 11-5. Raptors coming in 11-4. Big game. You're expecting a huge game from Joel Embiid, right? Now listen, Toronto wins 101-96. Pascal Siakam has a great game. Puts up 25 points. Makes some big clutch plays late in the game. Joel Embiid on the other side of the ball. I mean, he had an amazing game, I guess you could say. It was definitely amazing would be the word. He put up a big donut in the points column of the box score. Big donut. 0 of 11 from the field. 0 of 4 from 3. And I saw that. I'm like, okay, well, I guess he didn't get to the free throw line. No, he did. He was 0 of 3 from the free throw line. Now, I don't know if it was just because he was rattled to be back in the building where Kawhi Leonard hit that shot over him in Game 7 of the playoffs in the second round last year. But I don't want that to be the reason, because I don't want my best player to be rattled just because of the building we're playing in. I mean, listen, Joel Embiid, I consider him to be one of the best players in the NBA. He's for sure the best player on that 76ers team. But, oh my, you go into this big game and you put up 0, you lay a goose egg? Does not make sense to me. And then to even add to that, Carmelo Anthony put up 25 yesterday. He looked amazing. He led the Trailblazers to a win. What? If you told me that 3 weeks ago, I mean, obviously he wasn't on the team back then, but I would have told you you're crazy. But I don't know which is crazier. Carmelo Anthony coming back and leading the Trailblazers to a win by scoring 25 points, shooting 50% from the field, or Joel Embiid putting up 0. Neither of those things are making any sort of sense to me right now. Okay. It's time for the last thing of the week that does not make sense to me. It's related to everyday life. I have come to the realization that shoelaces make no sense. All right, I'm walking around yesterday. It's a normal day. Look down. One of my shoes is untied. So I bend down, retie it. Okay, thinking we're good to go. Start walking again. But then I notice, wait, hold on. The shoe I recently tied, it's tighter than the other shoe. So what do? Bend down again. Untie the other shoe. Retie that shoe. Okay, now both shoes have the same tightness level. We're good to go. Beautiful. We can walk again. But it got me thinking. Why do we walk around with these death traps on our feet every single day? I mean, think about it. The reason we're always bending down to retie our shoes is because if we don't, then we're at a greater risk of tripping and falling on our face and heading to the emergency room. I mean, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. And the real kicker here is we as humans have developed a technology that's safer and easier to use. Velcro, extremely underutilized. I mean, we give it to kids. Why can't we give it to, adults? It seems to be a little bit safer. Now, listen, I wish I could sit here and tell you I'm wearing shoes with Velcro. I'm doing everything I can to combat this societal issue. But I'm not. I'm sitting here. I got my shoes on. They're tied. Double knot, by the way. It's the only way to stay safe out there. And I don't know why I'm even wearing shoes right now. I should be sitting back, relaxing, taking a seat courtside. But I'm wearing my shoes. I'm not doing everything I can, again, to combat this issue that is shoelaces on our shoes. But overall, it just doesn't make sense to me why we walk around with these things when we have better technology. Anyways, that wraps up Volume 1 of Things That Do Not Make Sense, presented by Courtside. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this edition of Courtside. If you enjoyed, please go subscribe to the podcast wherever you may be listening. Share it with family and friends. I would greatly appreciate it. Go follow the podcast on Instagram, Twitter. Both links will be in the description. Tomorrow, it's the NBA Thanksgiving Awards. I'll be handing out all the major awards around Thanksgiving. That's why it's called the NBA Thanksgiving Awards. Until then, signing off. This is Andrew Cohen. I'll see you next time.